Welcome, everyone. We'll just start. I'll start with some thank yous while people are still joining. Um, First to my Litmus co-organizers and editors, A. Monty, who is going to be running the webinar for us today. Rachel Wilson, who's going to be introducing our authors today with me, and Miriam Atkin. I also want to thank our now in-house designer, Carolina Ortiz, who's been working with us a lot the last 2 years and who designed all three of the books today. Let's see if I can get them all. My background doesn't work that well, but she did really beautiful design work on all three books. And so I just really want to acknowledge her work. We do not have a live chat today in the webinar, but we do have the Q&A function that we'll be using. So at any time throughout the readings, if you want to post comments or questions, we'll have a little bit of time at the end where we can pose those to the authors. So feel free to use that as we're um, going through the readings today. Um, I'm so happy. It's such an honor to have Mira, Virginie, Michelle, Biswamit here today. I'm happy to have you all in the same virtual space from London, Paris, and Iceland. Um, and I'm really excited to hear the readings from these books together. Because, so the Unlikeness of Things, let's see, can I do one? There we go. Erode. Sorry, maybe, Rachel, do you have the books? Maybe you can hold them up. My background, Erode. My background is interfering. And yes, I am a destroyer. You don't have it. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. Anyhow, sorry about the interference of my background. But these are really different books, and we've worked on them individually and separately, but in sort of preparing for today, I just was continually struck by the nuanced intersections. In each book, there's a profoundly intimate exploration of the vulnerability and porousness of the physical body articulated through the specific ability of poetic language to express in diverse ways a human experience of both manifestation and dissolution. I think it's going to be a really beautiful reading of these three works together. I'm going to introduce Virginie and Michelle, and then Rachel will introduce Biswamit and Mira. Um, so the cover of Virginie's book, Virginie, Michelle, do you have a copy with you right there? There, okay, you got that's perfect. The cover of Virginie's book, The Unlikeness of Things, is from an installation by Jutta Strohmeyer titled Passenger. And from the artist's description, quote, a photograph is taken of a space every minute over the course of several days. The level of transparency of the glass alters in accordance with the prevailing light conditions. And this might well describe the episodic and poetic passages of Poitrasson's Unlikeness, about which Cole Swenson writes, this extended phenomenological exploration finds uncommon fusions as well as instances of invisibility and complex modes of multiplicity. This exploration is not without risk, though, without awareness of the extreme vulnerability of one's body. Quote, I'm scared. It is so simple and so real. I try to put my fear to sleep, to surround it, but I am in the howling of the world. It's the howling aspect, naked, the unlikeness of things. And in a recent interview published on our blog, launching our new blog, the Ether Sea, which I hope everybody will go and take a look at. Poitrasson says, I wanted to write an intimate and physical adventure leading to the troubling encounter of the other of oneself, because there is something immensely unstable within us, And one of the main challenges of writing is no doubt to invent in each book a poetics of this instability of bodies. Virginie Poitrasson is a poet, translator, and performer. She's the author of 7 collections of poetry in French. Le Pas Comme Si des Choses was published in French in 2018 by Éditions de l'Attente, and we're so pleased to present this collection in English as The Unlikeness of Things in Michelle Noteboom's beautiful translation. Poitrasson's translations into French include works by Lynn Heginian, Michael Palmer, Ben Lerner, Cole Swenson, and Meme Bersenbrugge. She lives and works in Paris. And Michelle Noteboom is a poet and translator. She's the author of Landscapes, Estepa Editions, Roadkill, Corrupt Press, The Chia Letters, Doozy Collective, Edging, Cracked Slab Books, which won the Heartland Poetry Prize, and Orcage, in French translation by Frédéric Forti, Éditions de l'Attente. She lives and works in Paris as a freelance translator in the French audiovisual industry. It's my pleasure to introduce 2 of my close friends to read from The Unlikeness of Things. Please welcome Virginie and Michelle.
Thanks a lot, Tracy. Thanks for the
Thank you for that.
We're very happy to be here, and thanks a lot again for the introduction. It's really nice to be here tonight. So we're gonna be reading some excerpts. We're gonna go back and forth from French to English and English to French, and sometimes mix things together. So we're gonna have. I'm gonna start, and we're gonna follow in a way the path of the book. Like we start by the beginning and we finish by the last sentence. So
I just want to say, in case people are trying to test out their French and how well they can follow, we're not going to be repeating anything. So anything Virginie reads in French is not going to be read. I will not be reading the translation of exactly that. We're going to be reading different segments. So if you are bilingual, you get even more. And if you're monolingual, you get half of things, but you get the music.
Okay. So, le pas comme si des choses. Je parcours le jardin, sentant ce qui est là, tout de ciel, de lumière, des bruits de scie quelque part dans l'un des ateliers, en retrait du chemin. À près d'1 kilomètre, en léger contrepoint sur le vent, et comme la clarté des choses peut approfondir mon pas, me donner quelque chose à saisir et tenir, voilà la scie qui s'arrête. Je marche, je songe. C'est un de ces matins sans oiseaux. Une immobilité plane sur les branches, un vide troublant par son épaisseur. Au crépuscule, entre les arbres encore humides, je marche au milieu de la fumée qu'exhalent mes narines et mes flancs. Je suis seule, là, dans le jardin. Je marche plus en avant, mais je marche à côté de moi, côte à côte avec moi. Je fais quelques pas négligemment et j'entame une reculade. J'essaye de me penser dans cet espace, mais j'ai du mal à y prendre place. Je songe aux disparus, aux oiseaux, à leurs ailes déployées, à leurs yeux fermés. Je suis seule. J'avance, je recule. La brigade des étourneaux assomme le ciel, mais tout à bas clôture l'horizon. Quelques lignes grises traversent l'arrière du jardin, je m'y adosse. Serait-ce un moyen de prendre place? Voilà qu'elles s'effritent avec la disparition du soleil. À leur place, il n'y a plus qu'une plaque terne et sombre. Elle m'aplatit un peu plus. Je vais quand même de l'avant. Je m'échappe et je me trouve pourtant ici. Allant et venant, je vais, j'irai et reviendrai. Parce que je suis ici et là. Et j'irai où, non, ou jamais. Et je suis là où je serai. Parce que rien ne vient entre moi, sauf les ombres des branches, écluses de mon corps, retenues d'eau intérieure. Loin de l'affolement extérieur, je me découpe au détour de ces branches, alors que celles-ci tracent tout aussi bien l'attrait pour la lumière que le plumage des oiseaux. Je passe au travers du feuillage, le sourcil haut, la respiration brève. Je m'avance plus en avant, mais tout en retrait. Ce soir, il n'y a pas de rire dans le jardin. Les arbres frissonnent, tremblent, frémissent, vibrent. Je jette un coup d'œil, je les écoute, puis me détourne. Me voici méconnaissable à moi-même. Je ne fais pas semblant.
I lie in my bed, the sky above me, rain falling softly, bird chirps come down like drops. There seem to be holes in the sky. Periodically, I wipe beads of water from my face with the back of my sleeve, rest my arm on the damp, earthy ground, lie in a puddle on the dirt path that leads to the house. My hair is soaked. It drips. Drops purl at its ends and splash to the grass while, airborne, I soar above the yard behind the house. Prone, I draw large circles around the damp greenery. On my face, the slow reflection of gray clouds. My eyes grow paler as the dripping grass drips harder.
Je ne tente plus vraiment de gérer le temps et l'espace. Ils le font pour moi. Ils ont investi les lieux. La maison est ainsi plus vivable. Nous sommes aujourd'hui. Je vérifie, et pourtant le calendrier indique que nous sommes bien demain. Je ne sais plus quand était hier.
Lying on my bed, the ceiling moves rhythmically before my eyes. My legs are heavy. They pull me down, as if the bed had become a pond. She's next to me, holding my hand. I point at the ceiling. She doesn't understand, but smiles kindly. I don't know for how long she's been lying beside me. Her presence is gentle, familiar. Maybe I'll let her stay in the house. I look at her, then I must look again. There's something evasive about her appearance from one moment to the next, a subtlety of her physical presence. Meanwhile, I close my eyes to focus on the sensation of the raindrops passing through me. Little by little, I become a liquid entity, yet my shape is maintained through my extremities, my head, feet, and hands, which still engage in solid ground. I locate myself using the tips of my fingers, the going astray point. Something inside me, something stillborn, constricted, vanishes from the world. I don't pretend, nor does she, to hold my hand. Everything's so damp. I hope maybe she'll find me by some miracle. I want to be the first to know. Meanwhile, I lie on my bed, far from my shore. I'm in my body, with no proof that it's mine. I believe it's much easier than one thinks to enter others, she says. And the falling rain that falls inside me, my secret desire to enter the body of another seems to change into pills, drops, and powders. My gaze breaks free from her while her body slowly evaporates until it is soon just a rustle. Right now, I am so aware of my body and thrust so hard out of my rut that standing up seems almost impossible.
Me voici enfermée dans le vase en verre translucide posé sur la table du salon. C'est la 4e fois cette semaine, je suis bien embarrassée. À force, je ne sais plus où me mettre, où me poser pour me calmer, me rasséréner, alors que je choisis ce qui me tombe sous les yeux. Et c'est encore le vase. Bien sûr, je peux toujours avoir une conversation. Je suis un peu à l'étroit, mais on voit au travers, donc cela ne pose pas de problème à mon interlocuteur. Parfois, celui-ci me cherche dans la pièce, sans pouvoir trouver la provenance de ma voix. Je l'observe de la table, il tourne en rond un peu désorienté. Certains ont même l'air très angoissés et croient à un tour de passe-passe. C'est juste que je ne peux pas me résoudre à adopter une forme définitive. Je suis en quelque sorte hors champ, et ce, en permanence. Les objets brillent d'un éclat métallique à mon contact, ils deviennent élastiques, tels des tubes en plastique. Alors, après quelques exercices d'assouplissement et quelques respirations profondes, je me soumets à une gymnastique des plus contraignantes. Les résultats sont souvent étonnants. Je me glisse dans la canalisation de l'évier, je cale ma tête dans le chapeau de lampe ou je m'enroule dans les rideaux. Je finis par avoir exploré toutes les pièces de la maison, sauf la cave, où je serais trop invisible. Même en étant hors champ, je dois rester proche de l'action, tel un électron qui gravite fatalement autour de son noyau de protons et de neutrons. Living restraint. Je cherche ma propre texture en épousant la forme des objets qui m'entourent.
I discover I discover something strange about objects. They pretend not to be themselves, to be mere recipients for something else. They give themselves easily, whether it be my change purse, a fountain pen, a candle holder, teacup, or even the window. They're recipients, first and foremost, to be filled. The window is the front of a large aquarium. I see an aquatic landscape there. It's raining outside. The wet leaves on the trees make this landscape drip. On the table, the cup and vase have taken on extreme dimensions. My hands seem full of a life that is not mine, and the sky grows too pressing. I grip the edges of the cup, must find a way out. For now, my sight is crystal clear, but I slip on the edge, and there's no elevator. I can't see if I've hit the bottom or not. And suddenly, everything's too fast. I slowly lose sight of the sky. My hands move away, no longer touch my face. Only some other being could open the way back. Sometimes I go at the power cords, try to make them disappear one after the other. I hug the wall, lean over the chest of drawers, look behind the couch. I yank one out, then another, and another still. But there are so many more than I thought. I find cords under the bed, behind the shelves, at my feet, around my neck. Even my navel seems plugged in. I try to unplug myself, in vain. Suddenly I start to shrink. My legs dangle in the air. My body sinks into the couch. This can't go on. I leap to my feet, run to the door, try to yank it open, but it sticks. It won't budge. I try hard, force it ajar by throwing my whole weight into it. I slip my hand through the crack, then my arm, then whole body. Here I am on the other side. Will my plight be reversed? My body is the shared texture of all things.
C'est la nuit, et je sens quelque chose qui ne peut se décrire qu'avec une formule chimique. C'est une sorte d'attaque.
First, I feel a pain coming, but it takes its time. Instead, a swamp opens slowly before me, black waters reiterating my irrepressible need for a presence other than myself, other than what surrounds me, waters that bring the distinctive fluster of standing near someone in semi-darkness.
Pourtant, je prends le temps. J'ouvre ma fenêtre, je regarde le ciel au-dessus des arbres. Cette nuit, il y a un vent furieux. Toutes sortes d'effets scéniques du haut couchant, un éboulement de nuages, puis le vide, et des amoncellements au loin. Des nuages durs, îlots violets et noirs, aquarellés telle une eau glacée, puis des dalles de pierre d'un vert et d'un bleu intense, et un frisson de lumière écarlate.
The sky is very near, teeming with star smoke and stellar corpses. Yet I see it neither as a mysterious extension of the world, nor as a guttural, unarticulated wonder, rather as something living outside language in the most ancient part of myself. My eyes gradually adjust to the nocturnal sky. I gaze a long while. It starts to expand, dissolve, and further deepen, developing layers, magnitudes, and light years in such unattainable numbers that, not without terror, I lose myself in the multitude of far-fetched names dreamt up to describe such expanses.
Tout prend peu à peu un aspect éthéré avec cette lueur blanche à l'horizon. Il y a des cerceaux et des couronnes de lumière aux alentours, comme si le monde avait sombré au fond de l'eau. J'ai l'impression que seul affleure son squelette dessiné par des poissons lanternes.
I can't sleep, so I look at the screen. It's the middle of the day in Monterey Bay, California. It's intriguing because it's happening right now as I sit here, and also because it happens 24/7. Anonymous fish, turtles, jellyfish, and sea lions come and go in the water, or else in the downtime, there's just water, water as water. After a while, I realize that the downtimes are the best.
J'aime cette impression d'organisation, d'un lieu contenu dans un cadre implacable, tel qu'en lui-même, sous mes propres yeux, avec l'heure locale affichée sur le cadran digital dans un coin de l'écran. La baie de Monterey est un autre monde, mais je peux le voir filmé dans sa réalité, les faisceaux de lumière traversant l'eau si foncée qu'elle en perd sa profondeur, les infimes bulles d'air cherchant à remonter à la surface, tout en étant constamment bousculées par la circulation argentée des poissons.
I still can't sleep. I toss and turn in my bed. To steady myself, I place my right foot on the tiled floor and wait for its cool caress to take effect. I also feel a tingling behind my lungs. I wonder what the underside of my chest would look like if I drew it from the inside. The cold takes hold, and with my body turned inside out like a burlap bag, I try to fall back asleep.
Quand je me réveille, je suis raide d'angoisse, hors de moi, non pas hors de mon corps, mais hors d'un endroit dans ma tête, celui d'où sort la voix, ou plus exactement ta voix, un endroit que normalement je ne vois pas puisque précisément tu t'y tiens. Le décalage n'est sûrement que d'un millimètre, mais ce millimètre n'est pas tenable par un seul instant. Il en résulte un je ne sais quoi de superflu, de gênant et étranger que je ne peux désigner que par je. À cet endroit, j'entends une voix liquide. Est-ce moi? Est-ce elle?
Immerse yourself. Lose your footing to get a better grip on the world, effortlessly entering and leaving things, delving in rather than remaining on the edge. Yet I remain alone on the edge, and I'm not there. I frequent the border, practically inhabit it.
L'affinité de la femme avec l'eau passive et pleine de nuit, où il semble que la vie puisse passivement se dissoudre. Es-tu de l'autre côté? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a là-bas, de l'autre côté?
Yes, I'm on the other side, and it's a whole other side from which I can still see you.
Que vois-tu? Je l'imagine qui esquisse un geste vers le bateau et le front des nuages qui avancent.
The trees are partially bent by the wind. The white ones are birches. They're called paper birches,
Les blancs?
the white ones. But behind the trees, others,
Derrière les arbres?
over there. She looks a moment. It's pouring rain.
Il a plu. Il pleuvra beaucoup. Encore.
The house is a boat, did you notice? It floats. It's a dot moving on the ocean.
Là, je te regarde, la mer, une fenêtre entr'ouverte, vue sur le jardin. Une nappe blanche tachée d'ombre, deux chaises vertes métalliques, une table aux pieds rouillés. Je me souviens. Je suis là aussi.
Is the house really a body of images that gives us the illusion of stability? Or is it a movable place where we become?
La maison est un pli de l'espace lui-même. De mon côté, je suis nue sans pensée disponible dans laquelle je pourrais venir me loger, qui pourrait m'accueillir.
Deep in my absence of thought, I sometimes forget I'm here. It seems in these moments I let light in.
Où es-tu?
If I'm standing, it means I do live somewhere. I stand straight in the house.
Mais tiens-tu vraiment debout? Je te vois. On dirait que tu es accroupi, ramené en boule.
I get the impression you advance like a shadow toward the end of a sentence, showing a word in its aspects and facets, as if it were a moon with various phases. But maybe it's just that with summer on its way, your shadow shortens and widens on the path. You take up space.
Je ne peux pas vivre hors du langage. Le langage, c'est l'esprit du lieu. Chaque fois que le langage procède par extraction de forme, cela me projette tout autant à l'extérieur qu'à l'intérieur.
Not like a dissection, which would be too violent, but a new layer of non-natural nature, which more often than not makes me a bit stiff, even clumsy.
Et pourtant, ces extractions sont de toute luxuriance, composées de moult correspondances et cadrages qui cherchent à m'apostropher toujours plus, pour me débusquer.
Behind my countless metamorphoses, escapes I can apprehend with my eyes, regressive symptoms or fulfillments, lies an open land.
Et c'est couche après couche, au travers de ces motifs à la variation infinie qui se répètent inlassablement, c'est par cette ritournelle du revenir à demeure que se fabrique le lieu. C'est dans ces plis de notes et de mélodies que se fabrique l'espace en soi du langage.
It's a place and not a place. Another day that falls into the water of puddles is reflected there fully. And this reflection colors my daily routine, goes adrift, makes it light and reckless. But that could be a whole other day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's beautiful. Thank you.
So lovely. Thank you, Virginie and Michelle. It was great to hear that. And I loved the moments of like back and forth between the two of you. So great. I'm going to, sorry, I'm going to read from my screen. And I'm introducing Biswamit Dwibedy. To perceive is to touch a crack, Biswamit Dwibedy writes in ERODE. And in Osalid, it is necessary that we scorn scheme. Between I was and I saw something beautiful, the sea breaking free. ERODE is Biswamit Dwibedy's fourth full-length collection of poetry and brings together his first now out-of-print book, Osalid, and the continuation of that work in a second book-length poem sequence, ERODE. And this is the book. My books are scattered, but this happened to be sitting right next to me, so conveniently. There's a sense of quiet but restless movement throughout the collection. It's even conveyed in the way language as type bends and weaves across the pages. A. Monty, who's behind the scenes today running our webinar, says that ERODE traces the shifting terrain of meaning where fragments flare into wholeness and then dissolve again. And then I apologize in advance, but I have to quote at length here what Sandra Duller has to say about ERODE, since it's rather perfect. She writes, "How are you not already reading this book and inside it? Biswamit Dwibedy will teach you how to read Biswamit Dwibedy like a golden lock flicked from a bang, like Nina Simone lip-syncing the latest Bjork, like wearing faux fur to a real red paint party inside a faux bois factory. If a channel is a communion, a channel, a cascading share of royal commonalities, you are already on this channel, and we are in it already together, our pressed gold silhouettes coating the museum walls. These poems are the platters passed around at unpoetry parties, where the thread is picked up as quick as canapes and just as delish. You think you've heard these poems somewhere before, and that's how you feel about things you need. You can't imagine them not existing. You just can't." So, my best blurb ever. Biswamit Dwibedy lives in Paris and is most recently the author of Ancient Guest from HarperCollins India, 100 Greatest Love Songs from Penguin, and ERODE. He translates from Hindi and Araya, and his poems have been translated into French. Dwibedy is also a visual artist, and he directs the MFA in Creative Writing at the American University of Paris. So excited to hear you read from this collection. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As you said all that, I just realized that one of my first poems, I think the second poem ever, was published by Tracy like 20 years ago in Off Gabe. And so I was just like, hey, that just like was reminded of that. And thank you to Rachel, Tracy, Monty for organizing this, for making such beautiful books, not just ours, but for the last so many years. Thank you, Tracy. I can't wait for you to come to Paris so we can celebrate the work Litmus Press has done together. And yeah, I will read from ERODE, and it's it's two books put together. And I've recently been reading in Paris, and I've been reading, this book that came out at the same time as ERODE did, called 100 Greatest Love Songs, which is its evil twin. And it's like people are laughing while I'm reading that. It's all about like being a waiter, and ERODE is so not that. But I'm glad that I have both of them. I might read from something from there. But for now, I will start with ERODE. It was a book that I wrote when I was working in advertising in India, like writing newsletters for like Amazon and Lenovo computers. And I just could feel the poetic side slipping. So I would just do collage and erasures on everything I could get my hands on, from a textbook of geology in India to a technical material that Lenovo computers provided us to like write the newsletters. So over years and years of collaging and erasing, till there was nothing recognizable in these poems. That's how the book came into being, and each poem is set as a scene. I was also hanging out with a lot of like four men who were kind of staying at my house. We went to work together, we drank together, and like it was a little like IT ashram. And so the poems are set as scenes in an imaginary ashram. So, and I'm sorry, I have a cold. Okay. Sparkles. Stay there on screen, admiring data pull from some satellite string. Trace a curving shore to summer each morning can occur in any month, mouth, notes on silence and distance at work, odd correspondence, you cannot count on vows. To perceive is to touch a crack, unaided the eye each morning, horizons, undocumented letters, faltered conversations, echo, bejeweled but no map, to guide the fault through this imposing earth. Scene 1. The master was incurable with Lily in his throat. As he listened to the line, I want to hear you break your silence and let the echoes that bind peak to peak remain incomplete, like gossamer, atlas of the unknown on your chest. Chant, you've entered my soft core and let each nerve ricochet. A hymn that you need 100 hands, 1,000 eyes to awaken the missing vowel, mother of pearl, scattered into another world where water is useless and each stone priceless. Steeped in the body, offering a flow, the loved one's voice remains perched on the other side of sleep. Forged out of chance, each pull of breath is contours driven into the heart that makes the hand now hover across that sea. He is standing on the shore. The water could not attract him anymore. Scene 2. Master had been discoursing about the architecture of each and every nerve, in which, like lightning, a mere pupil swiftly got on after finishing his meal. Reaching for the wretched light with this passion, when it enters our eyes, it imparts its lines to the night that never was. Thinking of progression, both linear and orbital, because of his friendship with the devotee, had been thinking of nothing but snakes, birds, coyotes moving away from and into that kingdom of half closed lids. Nor is there benefit in opening the eyes completely. You might be invisible to me, but I count on you as morning to strand by weave. Mango. Soft directions meet and mesh a rock formation. Will surpass any scripture. The most primitive fruit is the shape of a heart gone hard. Fossils follow a ghost in the dirt. A householder who is a true devotee lives in this kingdom of tracing patterns, unparalleled study of muscular activity, generating heat but no waste, heightening visual acuity. Our colored oils in the cones of the retina, swans and eagles use, or springs unattached to the nectar of whom do you say you return to with your eyes closed when no one else is awake? Scene 3. A honey leached through the living. A flood leads to remarkable fertility in a cage to protect the heart. A kind of glass used for domestic purposes remains engrossed with the reflection. Most sensitive messages don't trigger a response. Breaking the shell of glass, the reflection begged the master to keep him alive as possible by the waves, the many colors the master makes his own. There are different colors because it is contact with the thousand petal really black lotus floats, sometimes mine, sometimes not. Scene 4. The color provides a continuous network. Trapped in his name, the sea was millions of messages crossing drama of the body. The obvious analogy is with saying, this is that which has no color of its own, and is true for all nights, but not the ones that follow. And it thus follows that in repeating the name, you get closer to the formless way it acts. With your eyes closed may appear without attributes and release from the current of heats dispersed across great distances and unified body. Scene 5. Drops of water gather name on a red hot frying pan. The people realize they look out of the world and into the mouth of the unknown and exclaim, ah, give up intimacy to light the path of a more pleasurable science. After pondering over the image, when one's mind is on a wave, may just produce a mild sound but leave no wake. An ordinary fly yearning for honey, calculating difference between shade and shadow from the flowers unattached to vegetables, his companion word, alone, only, nothing else, etc. Scene 6. Smoke soils the wall at the temple, was resting after his noon meal in the afternoon. About the sun in them, the encyclopedia says smoke is the visible product that appears to be emanating from breath. But how else does the body say, I am him, this, O Jamuna, if I have not eaten anything today, then may your waters part, so that we may all walk to the other end of sorrow and think that the self is dead. Can a man be sure about that? We are fooled by the combustion that is carried away by a current of gases and resting after his noon meal in the early afternoon and in the early evening had been discussing regarding the sports in our arteries and ejected in an excited state a field of snow in which playing sensations swirl and form that unchangeable act of kindness. Emerge as spiders that make many uses of silk glands, plus don't throw away the unbroken black sky which provides silk towards the ease with which the spider moves over the field causes to understand the infinite through our limited mind. That is both instrument and matter. One web, the thread on which the young ballooning spiders migrate, is both amazing and difficult to understand, but a closer look at the dark, and you see he is none other than what dwells in the devotees after touching the web. Erode. The horizon fractures the eye into events. Streams of water during a heat wave, like mica, sparkle against the black ground. Quartz, grains of sand, consist largely of ancient rocks, a watery fruit weathering the bulk of what moves freely amongst crystal structures as milk we thought he was drinking. Emit an ash into the air, causing a stir among the believers who had been waiting for proof that he listens to you and was thus alive and will forever live like any other stone. Shale. Dip seaward. Spill into a mosaic on the cross-veined seam of sunstone. Upward flourish of an undercroft. Effects of the wake reveal no ore but a pattern beneath. Vortex in the eye prevails, deepening the green easterlies, steered by adjacent fires. An electronic river restarts. Thunderbolt. The prolonged rain on a sloping curve is the vehicle that reincarnates a slow drifting story. Whereas the white horse it hunts is an individual unable to make up its mind, acting often on opposite effect, a weird wind between a horse running wild and the rain is a bolt trapped or otherwise how I'll be able to trace shallow seas dare not disturb. When you're asleep, my skin absorbs the sun, retains a certain landscape. The way it melts is the opposite of how you open your eyes in the morning, unable to differentiate between the warm present from this ice age made possible by a single event. Hesychast. Cosmic imbalance manifests as riots over cities still warm from hands that open a door. Spreading the light chalk, a remnant, pauses all over the sentence, as a gift misplaced in the meaninglessness of pleasure, lingers, traces, couldn't communicate the news because the clutter would simply muddle the meaning, said the horoscope to the day. Look closer. Constellations swirl in the sweetness of his spit. Oceans roar in the salt of his sweat. We are breathless without his words. Can only tell the story in reverse to create a future without memory. Who went into the closet to pray and left a bell ringing for spiritual awakening over a bevy of boys in an elliptical path. Their fingers begin to look like yours. Or like a landscape you used to visit as a child each time you draw, strengthening the past, caught in a film of dust, and thus related to the underpass over which his body's movement, a rhythmic action, can only be described using a handful of drawings. Alive between two pauses, things that determine the length of my stride, a balance from which evolve elaborate wings over an infinite number of relics. He didn't move, he rippled. He said even his muscles had muscles that had been smoothed out, and only the seams of the gown were exposed to the air. Not seen as a continuous thing, but resistance over which the body stays afloat. A tangent where the entire edge moves so freely it becomes corner of an eye, an open window, and foil, invisible views where young monks set themselves on fire. Moniker, where each silence suggests new states of being together. Difference between desires to carry on a sort of conversation that has no name, under the spread of the impersonal, would have disappeared upon naming. Putting together seasons to unfix the golden underside, a group of muscles in the engraver's eye is beaten into the shape of a thin gold leaf set to destroy the fine weather of a picnic. On one side of the sheaf, shadow, and on the other, connected to the sheath, was the sun himself, breaking through veins, heaves a path of subdued interests. Most probable uncertainty emitting this atmosphere looks for an instrument of passage in Morse completeness. Decorative homophones babble a new form of politeness. Parks to enact for a moment the abrupt goodbye. And the coast is a single line frayed by the noise from which conversations come as a gift, and cities bear fruit like weather hangs, like bridges across distance magnified by the moon, brighter than it has been in decades. Catching at the bow of the vessel, shed some skin, or become a rock's modus operandi, and overlap, uphold filthy and forgotten jewels. Compete in moving with the slender snake, in a glance between two photographs. So many of you I already do not know, like unnamed constellations existing within the body. Or like three strands of the stream pleases the child of three roads who renounced attraction for worthy cruising, urging me to cook up for someone else his love for his lover's whip. The young man's hair rushes out of the village, signifying a withdrawal from the visible world. His hips, naked in the cold sea, are absent in any mode of lovemaking. He covets the pleasure in the lotus, its 100 petals, a place in the night where the object exists without being identified. And Ratna never means jewel in the Rig Veda, though the lotus or the thunderstorm, on the other hand, show the conversion of sound to sight that would seek what sort of an ideal mate, buzzing like bees, chant, and reluctant glass withdrew, a reflection in return is an insight into the mysterious. Each note hung on the web of a sentence largely imagined. The child holds the camera in a series of photographs that feign togetherness, in which the colors erase a distance famous for all it holds together, like a soft voice over the telephone deciding in a haste to give the event asked of the sanctioned body, emitting such frequencies as habit works from within and cannot be named until repeated enough times at the same time each day. Scene 7. Even the flood tide and ebb tide are were notes independent of the hours to a young devotee who then gently put forward the question, what is the purpose of life? Considered in a newly learned sequence in reference to the springs of compassion, the master said, the fish feed off the stone without attachment, and told us that first know this detachment and then everything else will come like crabs in the Ganga during rainy season. And elsewhere in the same book, the end of hair divided into 100 parts, and then each part is further divided into 100 parts, for then alone will you not be able to differentiate between your home and a foreign country. Scene 8 used to give advice to his devotees involving the use of the cyclic during such fickle weather and implored the disciples to live by themselves. Said, the bee sits on flowers only, and though they like to live worldly lives, they see that this universe is transitory, alone is real, and in the secretions is the math and mission. Immaculate young boys. Their attitude is that of Ravana, that excellent Pandit. He does a great deal of farming. Somewhere he is both worldly and alone, enjoys both yoga and bhoga, the one of knowledge and the other of you may wash 1,000 times the cup that the householders very often use, but it is never clean of the taste as after touching the lips of a true devotee. The master had been busy in discourse or indirectly observe bubbles on water are as if planets, and so I open the lid of the pot and see the birds fly into the sky. In our day-to-day life, for example, if there is a fish, it would let bubbles small and large seen on the water surface, and in chlorophyll, sun rays, very feeble, nonetheless was a flower, but it changed to a bird. That is it found your helping hands to be mine alone in all my work and plays, not disappear, floating into the separation between orbits. Master alone. Feeding on the bread of stars, at footlights of the ardent lover, their relationship now reduced to a metaphor, a cluster of knowledge that turns perception to the proof as one searches for it. Units of measurement become frames to reveal the radiant serpent ever changing in the night sky. This freedom is the result of that recognition. And so I descended from the sky and awakened you, said the bejeweled animal to the simpler earth, choked by muddy fragments. And lines of landscapes appear choked when expressions of the face cease to manifest. Two hands only intertwine by the extension of their shadows. As the shape of the word anonymous, because it is incomplete, a sequence turns to an extension seen in the nature of blood, and the frequency in question is the proof allowed to find no utterance. Scene 10. What's seen is a screen, and messages don't seem to cross the threshold but go back to hope, the reaching for an infinity that began at the navel. Along the spine are 6 lotuses. They open inwards. And in that light, you cannot tell if he had had his veneer swathed or had instead withdrawn, like light inside a lantern, through which we see this image of the fourth plane with 12 petals and the fifth plane with 16 petals, which eases the great pain in anyone. Then comes the lotus with 2 petals. You may think you have touched the light, but in reality, you cannot because of the barrier of the glass. It should reflect our unwavering thoughts. The glass covering the lantern is the obstacle making it so. This again lies in the mind, like sentences not yet produced. With each utterance forward, the space of knowledge changes its contours until it becomes a swarm washing over the edges of a queer body, which becomes the message itself. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Biswamit. So beautiful.
Thank you.
What a pleasure to hear. Yes, what was that line? You can't imagine them not existing. You just can't.
Yeah, all my books always come out in countries where I am not there. So in my mind, they kind of also are not imagined existing. So anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The Harper's like sort of regional publication always confused, like why isn't it just a worldwide thing, right? Yeah. Anyway, another conversation for another day. Thank you again. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mira Mattar. And does anyone, Mira, do you have your book handy? Yeah, I have all these stacks. Thank you. This beautiful cover by Hazem, the artwork by Hazem Harb. So gorgeous, and just want people to be able to see that. So rarely has a book possessed me so immediately as Mira Mattar's Yes, I Am a Destroyer. This acerbic narrative, at once lean and excessive, restrained to the point of rending, is a kind of ghost story, voiced by a no-woman who's drawn to evacuated spaces and things, commodities which are things evacuated of meaning, wage labor, the body, my organs are superfluous, she writes, narrative, memory, and the self. Memory, if it could be called as much, was not what I needed most, so I colluded in its erasure, she relates. I wanted to exist, so I was born every day. Living was for another life. Or elsewhere, on her employment as a governess, I teach what suits the ruling class. I change my name to her pronunciation of it. Now I can speak without mumbling, stuttering. My employer gives me a voice, words, a face, and body, their possible expressions and ranges of motion. In her push-up bra, my form and employer are happier. Here I adore being myself, finally glowing with application. I smile at her animals and pet them with sharp pencils, poisoning them a little daily. As Lisa Robertson says, Mattar's Destroyer animates, quote, a lush document of the refusal of subjugation, and we might add of subjectivity. Sharon Cleveland calls Yes, I Am a Destroyer, quote, an anti-Bildungsroman in the collapsing first person. And Marin Arsenios writes that here, quote, a character comes to life, a slightly monstrous creature bent on collapsing the boundary between internal and external world, shedding its human form, its organs and skin, so that the I can become the fiction it always was. This is an extraordinary book. Everyone who is someone should read it to become no one. Yes, I Am a Destroyer was first published in 2020 by Ma Bibliothèque in the UK and Europe, and we're beyond thrilled to bring out the first North American edition of this book. Mira Mattar writes fiction, poetry, and essays. She's most recently the author of Yes, I Am a Destroyer, Affiliation from Sad Press, The Bow, and the chapbook, and most of all, I would miss the shadows of the tree's own leaves cast upon its trunk by the orange streetlight in the sweet blue darks of spring, from Veer 2. She lives and works in London. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for that generous introduction. I didn't know you were going to do that. Yes, so I wrote this book between 2013 and 2020. So obviously it doesn't touch on the current phase of the genocide against the Palestinian people. But the more I look through it this second time, the more I kind of see that Palestine is in it all along, even though I never say it. What else was I going to say? I'm going to read a big chunk of the beginning and then a tiny bit from towards the end. Thank you for everything, for making this book and for tonight. Okay. It has been possible to fulfill the requirements by performing, with a minimum of effort, a series of repetitive tasks. Through this fulfillment, I have both lost and gained approval, friendship, love, trust, and employment in rhythms that varied in a pattern deemed natural. Held in an embrace of correctness,
The head was laid on the pillow in the same way every night. This was easier if I cancelled my experience, if it could be called as much. Besides, I preferred it that way. Memory, if it could be called as much, was not what I needed most, so I colluded in its erasure. I wanted to exist, so I was born every day. Living was for another life. I got a nice personality. Me. This ensured survival or something like it. Good circulation. Now I could navigate more successfully the tepid, necessary spheres and join more evenly with the seductive delusions of others. It was their universals I loved most of all. I tried to stop being a plague and became luxurious instead. Had I not succumbed to this, I would still be turning in a circle around the same febrile, unanswerable questions. Aglow with the industrious and single-minded activity of self-preservation was I. Beside me all along, keenly circling the ankles keening, was a suffering, whining thing. Quieting it was as easy as it was necessary. Gradually it stopped talking, became a weighty, lumpen addition to my being, and, through continued and committed neglect, eventually, like a gall, dropped off. Finally, I could walk without this stone in my shoe. I have a name, but it is not mine. I believe in nothing and no less. I have few opinions and only very slight, petty, pedantic, and even somewhat fabricated preferences, just to have something to say in company when I am among it. I start with the same sound every time. To give an impression that there is something there, here, a heart, some character, I have found that it is enough to say an opinion and show solidity by adherence. To say, no, I prefer that one and point at it. To lay the fingers over the strange body shape and express himself. See, the gesture says with the sounds, I too have a history and self-knowledge, control, ambitions, anecdotes, a story and the will to tell it. There is even an attic of heirlooms cleansed and wrapped, no scattered journals, no diasporic dispersal. I have physical attributes of particular colours and textures, and my childhood was as terrifying as yours, replete with things sprouting. I have an aversion to some foods, and the place I grew up in has features. What I have most of all, abysmal in the osseous matter and in abundance, is fear. It does not have to be summoned to be present. It undergirds. I'm only intimate with my fears. It is a staunch and vital intimacy, refreshing as the cool side of the pillow. My dearest fear is destiny, that everything is written, that the path is forged, word follows word, sentence follows sentence. I hear over and over again that it is the nature of things to end, but all I see is bludgeoning continuity. Perhaps then what is called nature is only the word for vicious insistence, or what continues ceaselessly is a thing more insidious than nature and more relentless than I. Any moments of upward motion, that heart-lifting sensation that articulates the heart, light breaking through clouds, etc., are only momentary glitches, shared hallucinations, dropped stitches. And though I suspect occasionally that to spy with suspicion these moments of seemingly upward or even sideways motion might also be foolish, with fear and suspicion as my idiot guides, how can I be sure of anything? Gravity is the only fact. To think otherwise would be embarrassing, childish, and I am an adult. All the forms tell me so. I'm lucky I have my fear to guide me, and whether or not fear is or isn't a belief is a concern of the psychologists and philosophers, and I'm not interested in the theories of either. This attitude, if it might be called as much, helps me slip flexibly through the narrow days. Or perhaps it is the narrowness of the days which allows for this flexible slippage, duodenous. In any case, I have no reason not to stay almost daily for dinner at the home of my wealthy employer, having created an excuse or two to loiter until then, upon which I gorge myself at their lavish table, agreeing with their small and pointless comments, laughing at their cruel and lazy jokes, even sometimes joining them at the most banal and dangerous events called culture, or the spoils of war, for which I am duly paid. My job is to help them maintain the vast, soft cushion between themselves and anything hard, so they would always land not only on their feet, but on the feet and hands of others, on their heads and on their hearts, on and on, thus creating beneath them a solidified mass. A household tutor is the part I play. I ease, that is my quality, greased. Now there is nothing to stop me torturing animals, neglecting and offending those who might be or become loved, and cruelly ensuring the body's devotion to the aesthetic and ideological strictures necessary for a modern life. At best, my behavior is irrelevant. At worst, it is of an only mildly despicable strain. Either way, little alarm is caused. In my room, I have just enough space to arrange my possessions around my possessions and maneuver myself around them, possessed. Belongings belong, navigated around and balanced. I slide alongside the machines. Here the bed is the desk is the kitchen table, the hob is the lighter, the kitchen counter is the desk, the chair is the table, the bed is the sofa, the windowsill is the bookshelf, the cupboard is the wardrobe, the seductive zone is behind the clogged ear, the tongue, a mop, the floor, groundless. Each is without qualities. The tap is not shiny. Its water is not refreshing or watery. The bed is neither narrow nor wide. The bare bulb illuminates nothing. One object only is one object only. It feels its hollow, spacious interior. It has a confident boundary. Me, my skin is unreliable, wrongly thin and fat. Of things, I take care of this cup. I wash it carefully. I dry it gently. I put it in the best place, inverted. On occasion, I pluck flowers from some well-tended garden to feed it, but in doing so the cup becomes a vase and its flowers become the flowers thrown onto the grave of the cup being slowly lowered into the earth. I was weak again in my longing. The cup becomes the deadest, most mourned object here in my little graveyard of stricken words pointing stupidly towards nothing. Daily I must remember to fold down the fold-up table. It is a small piece of wood hanging by a hinge to the narrow countertop designated kitchenette and demarcated as such by the difference between dirty linoleum and stained carpet. The table is supported by a narrow leg attached vertically to the counter, which, once pulled out, gives something for the table to rest on, and when tucked away, allows the table to disappear neatly. I pull it out every day to eat at if I eat, or to drink at if I'm not drinking in bed. Usually I go to bed having forgotten to fold it away, and when I wake, almost always crash into it. Day after day, it hits me in the center of the strange body shape, leaving the same bruise on top of the same marbling bruise. It is always fresh, so I cannot even tell if time is passing. For the room's only feature, the electric fireplace, broken, my mocking hearth, I know I'm being charged £20 more than those in the rooms that lack this feature. On it, I keep a few bottles of low-range off-brand alcohol, lest someone should visit and, seeing the drinks on the fireplace, be reassured that I have other visitors to whom I serve these drinks. The stability of a cocktail hour, the glow of a roaring fire. I dust the plastic fern and put it out. When I notice the face in the mirrored surface coating a square of wall above the fireplace, I think, both forlorn and proud, that even this fireplace has more character and history than I. No cute animal or kitschy design adorns the small box beside the bed. It was not given to me by anyone I care or could care about. It does not come from an interesting or meaningful place. Its materials have predictable provenances. Its hinges function charmlessly, and no identifiable mood characterize the moments during and after its unintentional pocketing. It holds sleep's necessary paraphernalia. Foam earplugs, the room is on a main road, the border between two ailing boroughs, vainly braced for cleansing. A darkly coloured eye mask, the street lamps cast the room an innocuous orange glow come evening, and a pack of easily obtained prescription sleeping pills which, when combined with the right amount of alcohol, aid sleep. Soon a comfortable gag, a swimmer's nose peg, and the crushing weight of tons of water. It's important to relax. Because I have grown weary of the faces peering in at me from the top deck of the bus, arranging, rearranging, I keep the fabrics mostly stretched. The stranger's greasy, sleeping head thudding against the window or lolling affectionately along a shoulder. The future's glistening viscosity in hoardings around rubble. Trees in wisps and blooms. Friends peripheral and thinned by waiting till each day's end to buy hard bread rolls that bloat them cheaply. Above, below, to one side, to the other, hacking cough, thumping stick, woman barking, TV, fucking, a fist in a wall, hold music, teardrop, an animal needing a breast, smashed dishes, slammed door, 3 morning kisses, a tooth pulled from the gums. And from the window, softly reeking fox shit, gasoline, weed, meat. When I peer from the back window into the yards of the shops below, I see often a mischief of rats rummaging in the mingled waste of the kebab place, the Chinese takeaway, and the chip shop. If the creatures were stupid, weak, we would not have to turn our heads. We could enjoy the ennobling effects of our pity. Our gaze could raise us, showing us the tenderness of our own hearts, the fatness of our empathy. We turn because we do not want to be faced with the congruity between intelligence and desperation it disgusts. When I eat at these places, ordering in numbers, paying in coins, I spread the paper napkin grandly on my lap and feel a peculiar sort of delight. After dark, I light a candle. A blue eye hangs in the palm above my door. I was not a demanding baby. My cries were communicative and not abstract. My tiny fist did not punch the air attempting to understand how to move through it. I suckled neatly, and my teeth, when they appeared and dropped out and reappeared in my head, were white, straight, and entirely blunt. As soon as was possible, and earlier than, according to the literature, is usual, I achieved full control of the functioning of my bladder, bowels, tear ducts, and other various dripping glands. My organs performed their work. Even as a fetus, I was a well-aligned ascetic. They told me I was a girl, and I believed them. It taught me who I may and may not love, how to arrive at femininity, and what I may and may not invoice for. Peered at and skirted, I understood my love would always have a pleading tone, that a shirt would never fall predictably against my chest, and that the lineage of smiling was only a hook in the cheek. It was a narrow road ahead of managing, maintaining, and defending this stranger's body, of making it body beyond body, shitless and pissless, bloodless, yet lustful, smooth, firm to the touch but unfeeling. Furniture, a pet, I populated dreams. It was disheartening for mourning to be the first thing I learned. It began shortly after birth. I heard I was from somebody else's memory of a place. Even for them it is slight, an idea, scaffolded by the memories of others who are dying, fading into memory and losing their own. Jolts, a texture, sentiment, aroma, tar, mint, bullet. Though I was lucky to be born fatherless, both he and I wondered constantly who he was. Around my neck was hung a key to a house that does not exist in a place that does not exist but still is teeming with people. It thudded against our chest, exposing its lost hollow. Inside, embroidery ran between the fingers. Jasmine exhaled at dawn, and even the knuckles had knuckles. How then did the wall of books throb constantly its inimical names? To identify temporarily was how to deny denial, how to make our own. Particularity was temporal, but had it stagnated, congealed with its fists up, chapping in the wind, or was this commitment? Visible, invisible on the deepest scrolls, turning inside the slickest geographies, whose function is to make the I am of one into the am I of another, to manufacture cruel difference. What appeared as nostalgia, watercolors of fields and peasants in poems, was history held to the present. It wondered how to remember without sentiment, or with sentiment in the correct proportion. Both rubble and the words to name it are rubble. So that I could move smoothly, like a worm, I concluded that what I thought of or felt as domination was only the name for difference. I got this cool new hat. I drafted a list of reasonable demands. I got to wear the clothes of the people of my people and explain them on stage. Still, I did not understand why as I wept, others cheered. I tried to loosen up, but all it got me was admission. It felt like a pillow over the face. I tried to be more fun, but fun kept feeling ruthless. Dawn, crouching over, airless, light, caustic in oblongs, in ribs, panels, between and in through schemes, announcing the bones. No temperature, not exactly, but wet, of fog, pressing, ozonic odor, spring. Soily mouth, lids, grit under gums, nails and in cavities, coating claw, beak and plume, tuft, ripped, appalling. A sickness over the city, squatting greenly, teeth out, keen, moving with ease, certainty, sharpening on us, ever fluorescing, toning the sky, lime and bile, acid hue in ribbons sprawls tentacularly into between the ravines of buildings, frail or permanent or gutted or fresh, fresher without, burned, empty, flung, snaking around hard temples, glass, denouncing the sour clouds, leaking over heaths, over marshes, teal, saturating slim chimneys, brick, asphalt, concrete, tile, forming and entering chapped pores, knuckles of invisibles, seeping up from bowels to spiral over coiled fox shit, dappled palest pink in new blossoms, ankles, calves, muzzles, straw, hounds, nostril gaping, rabid, breaths pinioned singly to white grass, white earth, withering a blade and returning, withering a blade and returning. At acute angles, metals lean, shading corners flat, surface, pinch, gleam, bright, burning mouth, broken glass lining perimeter walls, shred, heal, heal. Arches hollowed for greased haunches hung in glistening gyration, flesh fucked in good pools, water filling lungs till death as puberty disguised makes even this light hired. Harried locals' invisible face, homeless, undeserving of parks, rust in rivers dripping down new structures, clumping and clumps at the bottom corners is how time passes now, with its bones out, parched and jealous. At even the sky, eyes open competitively. Enough, blue, enough. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mira. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mira. Thank you, Biswamit, Virginie, Michelle. Yeah, so great to hear these three works kind of next to each other. Um, if you have like sort of things that you want to say, I know that we don't have the chat available, so we have the Q&A. If you just want to put anything in there, we're happy to kind of read it out loud, whether it's a question or a comment. And then we do have a little bit of time for discussion. So I'll pass it over to Tracy, but also if our authors have, reflections that they want to offer to each other, we can just have a little conversation here for the next 10 minutes. So thanks again. And thanks everyone in the audience. And I'm sorry we can't see you. There's always, and we know you're there.
Oh,
Tracy, do you want to do the Q&A?
yeah, sure. There's one for Mira, since you just read Mira. I'll read that one first from Mattar. Would you say that your book overall describes the vulnerability of having a lack of identity?
Should I just answer it, or are we reading all the questions?
No, I think go ahead and then I'll do the next one.
No, I think it's more about the vulnerability of having an identity, or having to have an identity at all, and the sort of work involved in keeping that up and trying to sort of make it into a thing that makes sense, which seems to go against what being a person feels like. I think I'll stop there, otherwise I'm going to start rambling.
There's another one for you as well. I interpreted in your first reading being disconnected from your environment, peers, and the paraphrase, laugh at your employer's shitty jokes. And initially, you mentioned how now you see the genocide of Palestine in this work. Is this where you see that parallel? Um, yeah, I'm not quite sure what the parallel is. If Danny, if you want to elaborate maybe a little bit more on exactly the parallel that you're trying to identify in Mira's work, that might be helpful.
We can also pause on that question
Yeah.
and circle back to it too.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, maybe Danny, if you just want to type more elaboration into your Q&A function, or I can also unmute, I guess. But I guess I did have a question myself also, since I have the speaking powers on this Zoom. I did just want to say, well, first of all, I was completely struck by this whole reading, and the kind of echoes. Just hearing these books together was kind of incredible. And the different, yeah, the echoes, and but also yeah, I don't know, just asking these questions of being a body and living in a world that is structured by power, and sort of just being, yeah, like these questions of orienting around that. I was just very amazed how I feel like each of you really centered that in your writing, but in different ways. Um, and maybe my question a little bit more, just I know Biswamit, you like also a translator. I last time I saw you was in Berlin. You travel a lot and live and write in many languages. And Virginie and Michelle, obviously you had like a bilingual reading now, and I didn't get to work on your book, but I do think I know that the two of you worked in this translation together very much also. Um, so maybe just like a question around just how other languages enter your work in this way, maybe your respective practices as translators or um, translating unlikeness together, sort of how that maybe seeps into your writing. Would love to know. And everyone else use the Q&A, because that is great. Okay.
If I just answer for myself, I mean, when I moved to the US a while ago, and that was my big dive up into the English language, and I actually everything broke apart, and it was for me the most transforming experience I had with with poetry, and I think I still keep this uh, um, alive in my writing, and it's for me very important to be connected with the English language, even though I write mostly in French. But I think it's the rhythm and the 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 sound and the energy I can find in English language, and it's so different comparing to the French one, gives me a lot of freedom, which I not always find in the French language, which can be very constraining sometimes, as you know. And that's the first step. But and I mean, regarding the translation, working together was a tremendous experience, and I think it gave us a lot of opportunity to be more creative, especially for Michelle, but more creative and more free also to get to step aside from the literal version of the text, and to choose some more, I would say, more free translation. I mean, at least, I mean, since we've been talking about it together, and it's kind of an agreement we had. We trust each other. We know each other very well. We can work together with a lot of confidence, and it gives us the opportunity to not. It's not another book, but it's a book we did together.
Yeah. Maybe having the opportunity, not the opportunity, but the freedom to go maybe in some senses further away from the original French than perhaps in other situations, just because if I could, I had Virginie right there to be like, oh, what are you saying in this, or what's actually going on? And then she would like describe it, and I'd be like, oh, well, maybe we can do it like this way in English. And she's like, yeah, do that. So, I feel like sometimes, I mean, not all the time. I mean, the book is really pretty faithful, I think, but sometimes we were able to go away, and get away from the original French text in ways that made it more of its own thing in English than it might have been answers the question. What's the question? What was the question?
Biswamit, you have something to add to the translation part? Because I think the question was also for you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know, but this book, it doesn't seem, it's more about being lost in a foreign language and learning the language as opposed to, and culture, as opposed to the translation aspect of it. I started writing Ozolid when I year after I moved to the US. speaking in a completely different language than I was used to, and poetry became like a way to kind of learn the language, to not learn the language and still be able to write. And yeah, all those kind of like, playing with the grammar, to not follow anything anybody told me about what a poem should look like. And thankfully I had Sandra Dollar as my teacher, who was like, don't listen to anyone. And I'm like, okay, I'll listen.
That's perfect.
So,
It's good advice.
yeah, this was about the brokenness and the, the like, yeah, the impossibility of ever mastering a language. But I think more recent works I've been working with lyrics from Hindi movies, and translating this book that I've been meaning to translate for like a year and a half. That my work for the next week is to just get that done. And so yeah, different kind of sources, from Oriya, from Hindi, and being able to translate that. Just like a lot of research has kind of demanded that I read in different languages, and fragments keep coming back into my work. So the fun with the several languages is just beginning. But yeah.
I think you have a line, Biswamit. I'm not going to remember it exactly. Every language is a possibility or something, right? Or each language is a possibility. And which I was, when I was sort of opening to talk about all three books very briefly, that was one of the things that came to mind. And I think whether translation or the I and the experience of subjectivity in your work, Mira, that like each language, each sort of poetic language or poetic gesture is that kind of both impossibility and possibility, which is one of the things that I see happening in all three works, again in different ways. But I think it's such an interesting kind of prismatic experience of that, the ways that we articulate the experience of being a body, and the kind of fragmented language that even if we're in a language that we're very comfortable and familiar with,
Yeah.
it's still this real impossibility. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like, you might know, but the last few years I've been reading and working a lot with Alice Notley, just like her thoughts. And the idea that you don't like, nobody's ever going to understand you, so why try to understand a poem?
Yeah.
Like, and the kind of like a corollary is that you don't have to understand a language to understand a person, and that I face every day. I don't speak French fluently, but I have never had to not do something because of language. And generally it's always broken French. It's not like we switch back into English, but this like, while language is beautiful and musical and our bread and butter, there's so many other languages happening also.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Danny actually clarified or had a follow-up clarification on the question for Mira, which maybe was more like on, well, the question reads whether the section that was representing apathy for people, sort of whether that is the connection to the genocide that you mentioned at the beginning, Mira. So I guess there's like a question in there, perhaps about the context of Palestine and the book, perhaps.
Yeah, I think I understand your question. I'm just looking at it again. I don't know. I don't particularly see the sort of Palestinianness of the book directly in the sort of relation between the narrator, character, and non-character, in an employment situation. I think that's a bit more sort of just like alienated labor vibes. But I think it's more that when I was writing the book, I was coming to realize myself about my own, like my own sort of exiledness. And the book kind of revealed that to me as I was writing it somehow. Like the degree to which Zionism and imperialism tries to sever Palestinians from their identity wherever they are, and from each other, obviously, and from the land and from life and from everything, really. But I guess from a sort of faraway place, um, I think I was coming to realize the sort of the way that it's like part of the weaponry is to not have Palestinians who are outside sort of be able to claim their Palestinianness. So I think that's where I see it. It's like I don't I wasn't doing this super consciously when I was writing it, but now I look back and I'm like, oh, I see. Yeah, that is definitely part of it's definitely part of it. But so is gender, like just being interpolated as a subject through all the different ways that we all are, gender, work, ethnicity, whatever, sex, sexuality, all the rest of it. Hopefully that made sense.
Well, I also feel like there's an interesting kind of connection to language again there too. And we were talking about language as this sort of space, like all these different languages as spaces of possibility, and poetic languages, and and poetics itself as a kind of, yeah, sort of building of other ways of speaking or relating to the self. But that, of course, language too is a set of limits, and especially, language is tied to empire, right? And I feel like, Virginie, you were even saying that about French, that you feel sort of constrained in certain ways within French that you don't in English. But I think that there's something there about like the sort of the world that language, the sort of constraints that language builds, right? Or what it means to kind of speak in one language and not another. In Destroyer, I feel like it feels very present to me.
I love this just line, Mira, from your book. That's so, I've read it. I read it over and over. It's very like devastating and jarring and beautiful, but I heard I was from somebody else's memory of a place. I think that idea. That's also, I think, language is implicated in that as well. Um, yeah.
I I don't know who's wanting to talk next.
Go ahead if you want to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll make it really quick. All of the stuff you just said, definitely. And also I think because I wanted to write fiction, I think what I was thinking about more is narrative and what happens to narrative under pressure. Yeah. Or like language under empire. Adania Shibli talks really, really well about this. So that's partly why the book sort of breaks down, because it's well, the narrative in a sense, or the narrative breaks down because it's just
Under constraint.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions from the audience or from any of our authors, translators, editors?
I just saw a familiar name pop up in the attendees. I think it's one of the dollars, and yeah. I just wanted to say that we're about to conclude, but we were talking about you a lot. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you all
so much
for the really beautiful readings, the work. It's been such a pleasure to work on each book, really. So thank you for being here. Thank you to our audience. Yeah.
Let's do this again in Paris.
Yes. À Paris.
Come, yeah. Come.
Yeah.
Let me come.
Okay.
The 25th on the 26th. That's our theme. The 25, 26.
Yes.
You have to do it in Paris.
Yes, I know. 25 years. So get ready, everybody. Yes, thank you all again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to hear you all.
Thank you for the organization of the reading, and thank you, everybody.
Bravo.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Bye. Bye.